We couldn't get my speaker notes up here on this monitor, so I'm going to stay a little bit tethered to the podium if that's all right. If you're wondering why I'm kind of hovering around my computer, that is why. But good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to The Hard Road Was Worth It, making Jira Cloud native on AWS. My name is Jake Brereton. I have the privilege of looking after the product marketing team for Jira Software, and I've worked on the Jira team for over 5 years now. In that time, I can say with a lot of confidence that there has been a lot of change in Atlassian's flagship product, but by far the most significant change, and what I'm here to talk about today, is Jira's move from being a product that Atlassian built, ran, and serviced on its own infrastructure to something that we entirely re-engineered and re-architected in AWS. And we just finished that migration recently. Since I only have 20 minutes today, which is a really short time to talk about such a massive thing, I'm going to use this time to give you a quick overview of the massive migration, how we chose to approach it, and then the wins we're now seeing post-migration. And then I also want to give you a preview of sort of the new Jira Software Cloud experience that we've been able to build in this re-architected version of our cloud offering. So let's get going. I'll begin today by sharing with you a bit of the backstory of Project Vertigo, which was the internal code name for this enormous migration of Jira Cloud. Next, we'll jump into some of the incredible benefits the business is now, and our users are now seeing that we've completed this migration. And finally, I want to spend a bit of time showing you some of the great new features and functionality that we've developed in the reimagined version of Jira Software Cloud. If we have any leftover time, I'm happy to take questions in a Q&A. So let's talk about Project Vertigo. From start to finish, the Vertigo work took about 24 months, which, as most of you can attest, is a long time in the fast-moving world of cloud software. Our Jira Cloud team spent 12 months planning for this migration, and then another 12 rebuilding the foundational pieces of Jira and moving hundreds of thousands of instances and millions of users over. It's a massive project. You might be wondering, why is this project called Vertigo? What's up with that name? And I think the answer really actually captures the size and scope of what the Atlassian engineering team set out to do. And during one of the original scoping meetings, when our architects were gathered around thinking about how this was all going to take place in under a year's time, one of the architects got up and started to leave the room, and someone said, hey, everything okay? Where are you going? And he said, yeah, I'm okay, but this whole thing is just making me feel dizzy. I feel a little sick. I got to step out for a minute. And so Project Vertigo was born. But Jira's recent AWS migration was actually the first of a few in its long journey in the cloud. Jira was introduced in 2002 as a server product, and its first foray into the cloud was actually Jira Studio in 2008. Jira Studio was hosted in a third-party data center, and when the product really took off between 2008 and 2012, Atlassian realized it would need a larger, more scalable, long-term solution for Jira's growth. And so it decided to build its own data center in 2010. So by 2012, all Jira Cloud users had been migrated into Unicorn, which is what the company affectionately called this data center. If you can't tell, we're very into nicknames at Atlassian. So for over 5 years, from 2012 to 2017, Unicorn was where Jira Cloud grew, and it exploded in growth as Jira's cloud business took off. And while this homegrown data center supported Jira's growth and the millions of users that use Jira every day in the cloud, it became less and less ideal over time. And the main reason for this was that Jira's cloud and server deployment options were sharing a single code base. So anytime the cloud or server business wanted to make a change or fix a bug or roll out a new release, and so on, it was literally twice the work. The engineering team had to take into account how this change would impact users of both deployment options, and that's millions and millions of people around the world for even the smallest change. Meanwhile, Jira Cloud users were telling Atlassian they wanted more features, they wanted tighter integrations, they wanted faster development. And our server users were telling us they wanted to double down on things like administration and uptime, which makes sense for people that are on-premise. And so the bottom line was we couldn't serve both user bases, either user base, at the speed and quality we wanted to. Simply put, life in Unicorn wasn't scalable. In fact, it was the exact opposite. So in Unicorn, each tenant had its own unique instance provisioned in the Atlassian data center. And each of these instances had its own JVM instance of Jira, as well as any other cloud product that the customer might be using. It had its own file system, its own database, and its own instance of Crowd, which is Atlassian's user management system. And to give you an idea of the scale we're talking about here, at the time Project Vertigo began, there were over 130,000 unique instances of Jira running in Unicorn, which equated to 320,000 JVM processes when you took into account all the other cloud products that these same users had adopted. So it's a huge scale. All of this was running on 120 data center racks that Atlassian managed. Need to fix something in Unicorn? You'd need to restart 320,000 JVM processes. So many that each and every change, even a bug fix, everything from a bug fix to a hot fix, It had to be done over a rolling 24-hour period because anything faster would cause the racks to draw more current than had been provisioned in the data center, and there was the real risk of tripping the data center circuit breaker, which they'd actually done before. This brings an entirely new meaning to the phrase hotfix. So while it was pretty clear that the unicorn model wasn't scaling with the needs of the business, the question then became, what did Jira need to truly be scalable? One Vertigo team set out to answer this question, and here's what they decided. First, they needed a service that would allow Jira to take advantage of multi-tenancy, something that wouldn't require management of hundreds of thousands of instances and JVM processes by our IT team. Next, they needed something that would scale by usage. In the world of Unicorn, in our own data center, each and every team using Jira got the exact same amount of resources, regardless of how many users you had or how you're using the product. And that's not a good way to scale. Increased scalability would mean improved performance for every single Jira user. And finally, we needed to rebuild Jira Cloud on a platform that was world-class, something that would set us up for success over the next decade, and that would allow our users to scale, as well that would scale with Atlassian's growing business. Now, in parallel to the search for a new cloud platform, a second Vertigo team developed 3 guiding principles for this project. It's a huge project, and they wanted some guardrails. Principles that could be referenced at each and every stage, especially when there needs to be tough calls and trade-offs, which any project at this size is going to have. The first principle is transparency. The decision was made that at no point would any Jira Cloud, any active Jira Cloud user, be made aware or become aware of this migration. This is no easy task. One of Atlassian's core values is not effing the customer, and this principle, I think, aligns with that very well. We didn't want to disrupt anyone using Jira as a mission-critical system. One Vertigo engineer told me as I was interviewing him, it was the equivalent of us deciding to repaint a 747 while it was flying at 40,000 feet and making sure no one inside the plane saw us while we were working. But the team was up to the task. The second principle was zero loss of functionality. So early discussions about rebuilding only a certain percentage of the product were immediately scrapped. One of the reasons Jira is so trusted and loved in the software development industry is because it's endlessly customizable. And so the decision was made that each and every piece of Jira Cloud would be brought over, an exact one-to-one match. Nothing would be left behind. And finally, both 1 and 2 had to occur with absolutely zero performance degradation. So at any point, if there was one of these changes that looked like it was going to slow down anything for a single instance, they immediately went back to the drawing board and said, we need to find a better way. So it sounds pretty easy. So through that lens, for 24 months, the Vertigo team planned and carried out a rebuild of Atlassian's largest product and migrated every last one of its millions of users across. And the end result has been better for Jira's end users as well as Atlassian. It's a world in which there are 2 specific code bases, one for Jira Server and another for Jira Cloud that's built entirely in AWS. So that's a quick overview of the Vertigo backstory, but now that we're on the same page, I want to talk about some of the benefits that we're seeing as a result of this migration. And as I talk about these benefits, it's worth noting that when I say our engineering team went all in on AWS, they went all in. So a short list of the things we're using: EC2, Elastic Load Balancing, CloudFormation, CloudFront, RDS, Virtual Private Cloud, S3, Elastic Cache, the list goes on. If I just listed it, it means we're testing it or we're using it. And our engineering team, as they were telling me about this, were getting pretty giddy. Once the migration was complete, almost overnight, the Jira Cloud support team saw a 75% decrease in performance-related tickets. 75%. In the world of Unicorn, everyone had a set amount of space on our own hardware. We didn't have the advantage of scalability. In the multi-tenant world of AWS, we've seen stunning results that a system that instantly scales with a team's usage of the product. A far more performant experience for every user overnight. And that 75% reduction in performance has led to a 77% decrease in the time spent on these tickets. So Atlassian has a very large cloud support team. There's a specific team that works on performance. And now 3/4 of that team is freed up to help other users. So again, a huge win for our customers as well as the business. And then remember when I spoke about needing to restart 320,000 JVM processes and tripping a circuit breaker in our own data center? In AWS, there's no need for a rolling 24-hour window for updates, fixes, hot fixes, anything. The team's mean time to resolution went from days down to minutes. Now things can be fixed all at once, at one time, and the change can be rolled out in seconds or minutes. It's truly staggering to think about the impact this has had on Jira's engineering team and their ability to ship value to customers faster. And those updates and fixes aren't just being rolled out in minutes, but multiple times a day. So in Unicorn, the team released once a day, and the complexity of that release was far greater. anything and everything that needed to go into that one release had to be in at a certain time. There was always the concern that, again, as you're rolling out over a 24-hour window, something would go wrong. In AWS, the team has quadrupled the amount of times they release per day, and it's even faster than that for our smaller services. This not only means greater value to customers faster, but also happier engineering teams. And if anything isn't working as planned, smaller and less complex releases means things can be rolled back with a snap. No 24-hour windows. Now, I mentioned before that we were all on AWS, and one of the biggest advantages is the ability to rapidly experiment with the different Amazon services. And this is something our team has been taking full advantage of. In Unicorn, experimenting with a new service, and this is a true story, it often meant actually buying physical hardware, installing that hardware, and then, in the words of our engineers, hoping and praying that the upgrade you made actually improved the right metric. In AWS, experimentation across EC2 and RDS is now just part of the regular development cadence. As one engineer told me, we're always trying to triangulate the best possible outcome, and the ability to swap different pieces in and out of that equation in a matter of minutes allows us to fine-tune Jira performance like we never have before. It's a game changer. And the results of that fine-tuning are paying off in a huge way for end users. Since the completion of Project Vertigo last December, our Jira Cloud Performance Index, which we define as an aggregate of the in-browser performance of frequently used scenarios, it's increased by over 25%. It's a huge win for customers. This increase means the most common use cases for Jira Cloud, such as the loading of an issue, are vastly improved. As a result of this fine-tuning that I just mentioned, we've increased the speed at which an issue loads in Jira Cloud by 40%. It's amazing. And these performance improvements aren't just being seen by some users, but by everyone. Another concrete way our team has optimized Jira Cloud for performance is through regional data centers. Our Unicorn data centers straddled the US coast, which meant that users around the world often didn't see or feel the benefits that we were shipping. So to better serve European and APAC customers, in the 6 months following the Vertigo migration, we opened 5 additional data centers around the world. In other words, we went from 1 data center to 6 in under a year. This is something that only would have been possible in AWS. And now users around the world are seeing and feeling the benefits. And now that I've shared some of the technical wins from Project Vertigo, I also want to highlight some of the great new features and functionality that we've rolled out as a part of this reimagined cloud experience. Things that we've delivered to users faster than ever thanks to our new architecture. Through 2016 and 2017, as Project Vertigo was well underway, Jira Cloud experienced a decrease in the amount of new features and functionality being delivered. And the reason was simple. The majority of the team was heads down rebuilding foundational pieces of the product in AWS. However, in the past year, we've made up for lost time, and on the back of our re-architected product, we've rolled out a slew of new features and functionality that we're really, really excited about. Everything from roadmaps to new boards to a completely redesigned issue experience. And perhaps the best news of all is that this release cadence is only going to increase in velocity in 2019. But now let me show you just some of the ways that some of the things we're particularly excited about in this new improved Jira Software Cloud. Over the course of Project Vertigo, as the back end of Jira Cloud was being rebuilt, the product team saw a golden opportunity to also rethink and redesign major pieces of the front end, and they seized the opportunity. The first example of this is our new roadmaps feature, which just rolled out to 100% of users last month and is already seeing massive adoption. Our simple roadmaps alleviate the need to ever create a custom roadmap again. The backbone of these roadmaps are actual Jira tickets, and the beauty of that is you know that whatever you're looking at is always up to date, and you can share it easily with your team and with other stakeholders. Whether you need to sketch out the major components of a big project you're planning, communicate to a team how things are going or a dependency that might be taking place, or just you want to see if a project's on track or when it's going to be delivered. Simple Roadmaps is new, it's free, it's out of the box in Jira Software Cloud, and users are loving it. We've also rolled out all new boards, which we're calling next-gen boards. These boards have been truly redesigned and reimagined from the ground up to be effortless to set up and manage. Our new boards mix the simplicity of Trello with the power of Jira, and teams can do almost anything they want to from now the board itself. From building and changing workflows on the fly to inviting new team members to adding things like whip limits and swim lanes, you no longer have to dig deep down into the settings or configuration to change things. It's all right there on the board for you. The next-gen boards in Jira Software feature an all-new modern UI, and they're faster and more responsive than ever. Boards are where software teams begin and end their day, and we're thrilled with this new experience, and our users seem to be as well. And while Vertigo teams were re-architecting the product in AWS, our engineering teams were busy taking the opportunity to re-architect key parts of the configuration experience in Jira, which is a huge and important part of the Jira product and the value it provides. Previously, teams that wanted to try Scrum or Kanban or any particular type of development methodology, they had to opt into a template. And once you're in that template, the structures of that template often sort of held you to that methodology. And what we're hearing from users is they wanted more flexibility. They wanted more agility to try to experiment different ways of working. So for example, if you're a Kanban team that now wants to try a 2-week sprint, you can now do that in seconds. All features are built in, and you can turn them on and off with a toggle. It's as simple as that. Templates still exist in the classic version of Jira Software, so people that want or need templates are there. We will continue supporting them. But in this new version, you can really fine-tune Jira to figure out the way your team works best. We don't need to opt into a particular methodology. And the last major improvement I have time to cover today is the entire redesigned Jira issue. The Jira issue is the most trafficked page within the product, and it's where the average Jira user spends the majority of their time. So the Jira Cloud team spent well over a year redesigning the Jira issue to be more organized and accessible than ever before. The Jira issue is a team's unit of work, and it's where all work starts and ends. But it's really difficult for a user to get the context of what they need and all the relevant information when things are so scattered. So the entirely redesigned issue presents more of the context and information that a user needs in a far more organized and consumable way. In short, Jira users can now set up and customize the issue experience so that their teams have all the information that matters, and they can remove any information that doesn't. And the end result of this speaks for itself. The next-gen issue experience is already making teams more efficient and empowering them to spend less time searching for the information they need and more time actioning on the work, which is really what the value of the Jira issue is. Before I close, I also want to mention that as a part of the new Jira Cloud experience, the team has opened up a whole new host of APIs. APIs that are leading to broader and deeper integrations than ever before. In the world of cloud software development, teams expect their tools to work seamlessly with one another, plug in and talk to one another. And now, out of the box, Jira Software plugs into dozens of new developer design and productivity tools. Unlike most of the things I've spoken about today, there's a lot now, and we're even more excited about what's to come. To learn more or to try the new Jira Software Cloud experience, simply visit atlassian.com/nextgen. And there you'll find all the important information you need to get going, to dig deeper on what we've done, or to ask questions. I would greatly encourage each and every one of you to take the new Jira Software Cloud experience for a spin as soon as possible. I think you're going to love it. And if you've enjoyed the topic of my presentation today, in the very short time window I was provided, but you want to learn even more, and you want a deeper view on Project Vertigo and Jira's migration to AWS, I'd encourage you to join our upcoming webinar, Inside Atlassian's Journey to Data Center on AWS. It's on December 7th, and 20 minutes is hardly enough time to do this incredible story justice, and there's a bunch more that you'll learn in that webinar. If you want to join this webinar, I encourage you to go to atlassian.com/webinars, and you can sign up today. Again, that's on December 7th. It's going to be great. And I am just at my time right now. I really want to thank everyone for joining me for this session. Atlassian has a booth. We're in the back. It's 429. If you have any questions, I'm heading back there now. Our entire team's there. We'd be happy to talk to you more about any of this or anything Atlassian or Jira related that you would want to speak to us about. Thank you so much.